On the front line, you don't have a name. You only have the distance between you and the man trying to kill you. And that distance is the only thing that matters. For the sniper, it's 600 meters. There's nothing heroic in that distance, only the cold and a back cramped from stillness. You lie in the mud for hours, turning into a mound of earth, waiting for one single movement. You aren't just shooting, you're deciding who doesn't get to come home for dinner today. For the signalman, it's 2 kilometers. But that's not a path, it's an eternity under fire. You crawl across shattered earth, winding your own life onto the spool. And when your teeth clench the ends of the wire so the battery can hear the commander's voice, that's not a feat of glory. It's the work of a nervous system that must function even if your body is already written off. And for the anti-tank commander, it's 50 meters. That's when you feel the heat of the German engine with your bare skin. That's when you see not a tank, but the stubble on the driver's face. There's no time to think here. Either you slam a shell into his side, or in 1 second, you're crushed into the floor of your own trench. Today, we won't talk about tactics. We're going to dissect how human will is built. How do you survive where iron melts, but a man stands firm? We're used to the cinematic screams of hooray. But real war is the quiet, savage work of 3 different men whose fates are tied in a single knot. I will show you this world from 3 angles, through the optics, through the pain, and through the armored shield, so that by the end, you can answer one question. How many meters of your soul would have lasted there in that pit? They say a sniper is a hunter. They're lying. A hunter stalks his prey. A sniper endures it like a slow, heavy fever. Your main enemy isn't the German marksman on the other side. Your main enemy is your own body. It will betray you first. After 3 hours of staying motionless in a wet shell hole, your joints begin to ache as if rusted nails are being driven into them. After 5 hours, you lose all feeling in your legs, but you cannot move. One careless shift, one glint from your lens, and a mortar shell arrives. On the other side, there are men who know exactly how to count seconds. Do you know what you think about during those hours? Not about glory. You think about how not to blink when an insect crawls across your cheek, or how to stifle a cough that's tearing at your lungs from the damp air. A sniper is a man who has learned how to bargain with his own pain, and then he appears in your sights. You don't see him as a target on a range. You see him adjusting his field cap. You see him pulling a crumpled photo or a dry crust of bread from his pocket. And in that moment, it's not fear that wakes up inside you, but a heavy, leaden right to fire. You realize, if you don't squeeze now, tomorrow he will squeeze a machine gun trigger and mow down a dozen of your boys going over the top. It's not excitement. It's the grim bookkeeping of war. You cross out one life to preserve hundreds. And when you pull the trigger smoothly on a half exhale, the world freezes for a heartbeat, a dull thud, a kick to the shoulder, and silence. You don't celebrate. You have to lie there for another 3 hours so you don't give yourself away. You are left alone with your shot, and that solitude, it is the heaviest burden a man can carry in this war. A signalman on the front line is a man who is always running late for his own funeral. The sniper has his rifle. The gunner has his shield. The signalman has only a spool of cable and 2 kilometers of someone else's hope. When the line goes dead, an army turns into a mob. The commander screams into a silent receiver, and the battery 3 miles away has no idea where to aim. In that moment, you are the only one who can restore their sight. You don't charge to the sound of music. You crawl on your belly where even the rats are hiding. Do you know what the most terrifying thing is? It's not the bullets. It's the silence in the handset. You realize that somewhere out there, in a shell crater or on the barbed wire, metal has severed the vein, and you must find that break. You crawl along the trail of your own wire, like an umbilical cord connecting you to life. In war, there is nothing more wretched than searching for a break under a mortar barrage. Your fingers won't obey. They are frozen stiff from the damp earth. And then, you find it. 2 ends that don't reach each other by a hand's span. You have no tape, no time. The German infantry has already stood up to charge. And so, you do what's not written in the field manuals. You strip the ends with your teeth, tasting copper and burnt insulation, and you squeeze them in your fist. You become the terminal yourself. The current of the command pulses through your body, a short, jagged signal. Fire. You shake, your teeth grind from the tension, but the line comes alive. You lie in the mud, helpless and unarmed, while the roar of your own heavy shells begins overhead. You hear them screaming toward the Germans and you know they heard you. You didn't survive to kill, you survived so that your side could speak. It is the quietest and the most terrifying job on earth, to be the nerve that has no right to break. If the signalman is the nerve and the sniper is the eye, then the anti-tank crew is the set of teeth that sinks into the enemy's throat at the very last second. We don't have the luxury of waiting for hours or crawling in the rear. Our distance is a point-blank shot, 50 meters. Books call artillery the god of war. But on a direct fire line, you aren't a god. You're a dead man behind a thin steel sheet that a German machine gun shreds like cigarette paper. Our 45mm gun against their Panzer III or IV, it's like taking a kitchen knife to a charging bull. You hit the front, the shell sparks off into the sky. You hit the side, it grazes the armor, leaving nothing but a scratch. Do you know the commander's greatest torture? It's the waiting. The tank is coming for you, the ground is shaking, and it feels like it's already everywhere. Your heart is pounding in your throat, but you scream to the crew, "Hold, do not fire." Because if you strike from 300 meters, you only give yourself away. You wait. You let him get so close that you can hear the clatter of his tracks and the choking of his engine on the slope. And in those 50 meters, your entire life is compressed. At that moment, you don't see an abstract machine. You see the vision slit. You see the rivets on the armor. You see death, and it smells of burnt diesel. And when you finally exhale that short fire, you aren't hitting a tank. You're hitting helplessness, turning it into rage. It's the moment when the iron fails, and you take over. You ram the shell into the breach with your bare hands, not feeling your skin searing against the metal. You work like a wound-up mechanism because you know. Behind you are the infantry foxholes. If you miss now, they'll simply be crushed into the dirt. There is no room for grand gestures here. There is only soot, the ring of empty casings, and a terrifying, savage, masculine joy when a jet of black smoke erupts from under the German's turret. You survived. For one more minute. But in war, that minute is worth an eternity. A sniper, a signalman, a gun commander. 3 different lives, 3 different ways to look death in the face. Through the optics, through the pain, and through the armored shield. In headquarters, they'll call them personnel units. In newspapers, they'll write about mass heroism. But the truth is, there is no mass out there. There is only you and your decision. In war, you survive not because you're a superhero, but because you are a link in a chain. If the sniper hadn't frozen for 5 hours to take out that machine gunner, the signalman wouldn't have crawled his 2 kilometers. If the signalman hadn't clenched the wire in his teeth, the gun commander wouldn't have known the tanks were already behind the woods. If the 45mm crew hadn't held their final 50 meters, they all would have remained in that nameless mud. The geometry of hell isn't about meters or calibers. It's the distance between your fear and your duty. It's when you realize there's no one behind you but your comrades. And if you let go of that wire or look away from those sights, the world collapses. We are often asked, "What did you feel out there?" I'll tell you. We felt weight. The weight of responsibility for the guy crawling somewhere to your left. That is real man's work, being the pillar where everything else is crumbling. We've shown you 3 sides of one victory. And now when the screen goes dark, ask yourself, how many meters of your soul would have been enough? Who would you be in this chain where there are no names? Only the distance to honor? Cherish the silence. Those we've told you about paid the ultimate price for it.